Public Safety Committee meeting from May 5th, 2025. Councilor Gwaltney.
Here.
Wolverton. Here. Brandt. Here. Now, is that Harden? Stepped away. Where did he go? Maybe to the bathroom.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes,
I appreciate that. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to dispense the reading and approve the minutes from the Public Safety Committee meeting April 21st.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilor Brandt, second by Councilor Wolverton. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 3-0. Old business 070425, request for consideration to add a streetlight at 1455 Overlook Road. Mr. Hanley, I'd first like to apologize to you because I should have come and told you that once it's approved in finance, we probably would have just, you could have gone home. But thank you for hanging out with us. So, same item that we had in finance for the streetlight that was addressed by, I forget their names at the moment. Yeah, so is there any further discussion amongst the committee or anyone in the room?
Nope.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilor Brandt with the motion, Wolverton with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. None. Sorry, 3-0. New business 3205-0425, request for consideration of a crosswalk at the intersection of Mayfair and Ridge. Councilor Smith and Nelms.
Yes,
This is
sorry.
by the playground.
Yes, no, not by the playground. So this is a result of some conversations that we had with residents on Mayfair Drive on the non-sidewalked end. Kale and I and Jalit met several of the neighbors out there, and then Kale went out there subsequently, and we had we had some speed studies done. Randy, yes. And then, so we identified, a neighbor brought up the fact that we have no crosswalk that gets you from the end of the sidewalks on Ridge on the opposite side to the start of the sidewalks that go along the side of the library. And that, there you go. So there's no crosswalk at that intersection taking you from the end of one sidewalk to the start of the other sidewalk. And as we all know, that's a fairly heavily trafficked area, especially in morning times and afternoon times when kids are walking home from Shades Cahaba. And also people accessing the library and trying to get over to Overton Park. So the proposal was that we would add a sidewalk in, and Randy, you'll have to tell me, I can't remember if we decided to take the crosswalk from the end of that driveway across.
Yeah, from the end of that driveway. If we do it at an angle, it's gonna be a lot,
Weird.
longer crosswalk, and
Yeah.
we try to make it as short as possible so they, spend the least amount of time out on the road as possible, so.
And that is there's a stop sign there and a stop sign over here, so you've got two stop signs. A three-way stop, yeah, so that will help that there's no car that's just gonna be flying through where there shouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah, but I say we have a drawing, but that appears to contradict what we're discussing.
Oh, is that the angle, is that the angled one? Cause we talked about doing it straight across from the sidewalk. So we can get you an
I would
updated.
say, as someone who lives on this road, people do it straight across. They don't do it from the sidewalk.
No, they do it from that driveway, yeah.
So
Cause again, it's the shortest route.
Correct.
Yeah,
I'll provide
We just need a
you,
new diagram.
we just need a new diagram.
Mr. Kendrick, I'll provide you with an updated graphic since I think I created that one.
Okay, yeah.
Or Kale, do you wanna do it? Did you create it?
Who drew the diagram?
I think I did. Someone was explaining it to me, and I wanted to make sure that I was capturing what we were talking about.
Engineer Andy
Yeah.
did that.
So,
Of his many hats, he's now
Diagram.
covered.
I would also have a concern, so when we install these crosswalks,
Yeah.
we need to make sure that for ProAg and ADA, that we have a place for someone in a chair to land
Right.
safely. So I would encourage you guys, the city, to go ahead and
Put a ramp.
Put ramps in on either side
I mean,
of
well,
the crosswalk.
okay, well, so here's a question, because that driveway, although it doesn't really look it, it's
It's
pretty
flush.
daggum flat.
And we would just pour it from the landing up to the driveway.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd have to put a landing
On one side, okay, gotcha.
Would the stop sign need to move back some?
Berkeley can put that in.
Okay, you can do that, okay.
Yep.
All right, so I guess, people feel free to ask any questions, but, I mean, well, no, it's not my committee, what am I talking about? I've been saying, just take it over. You took over for me, now I'm just gonna take over for you.
You've been running that thing all night. Keep going.
But yeah, so it would just be, I mean, it's gonna make that crossing a lot safer for
Cal, are we
the
gonna do
neighbors.
the power, what's that, the green thing, the box?
I think so. There's a storm in my right there. Berkeley was here.
Berkeley, we'll let Berkeley figure that one out.
But there's already
Okay.
a landing right there.
So,
So we have any estimated costs, or we gotta get that?
but it sounds like, Berkeley, you said your team can do this in-house, correct? Okay.
And then
All right,
Randy.
so the appropriate motion would be to approve this item, with the additional work being performed in-house.
As soon as you draw it,
I'll make-
Pass that baton, Mr.
I'll
Sounds
make
like we
the,
don't want that.
I'll make the motion to approve the, crosswalk for the intersection of Mayfair and Ridge Road, as long as it's handled in-house with the city employees.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Counselor Brandt, second by Counselor Harden. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That motion carries 4-0. For the record, please note that Mr. Harden has rejoined us as the member of the Finance Committee. Okay, 330425, request for consideration of a crosswalk at the intersection of Carr and Broadway. Again, Counselor Smith.
Did you draw this one?
I did not.
Sorry, y'all. Apparently I'm a crosswalk lady tonight, and my apologies to my Ward 3 councilmates. I just happened to be coming home from Publix one day, and there was a mom with her stroller crossing across Carr from one corner to the other, and she was maneuvering her stroller, and there's no crosswalk there going across Carr. There is a sidewalk, I mean, there is a crosswalk that goes across Broadway from right there to get people over to Sorelle and the restaurant, John Marco's, but there's not a crosswalk going across Carr from one sidewalk to the other sidewalk. And I just watched this young mom struggling to get across while there were cars trying to navigate that intersection. So I said, hey, while I'm adding crosswalks, let's add another one. So that's where it is.
Somebody send me a map.
Are we sure there wasn't one here before? I was gonna pull up Street View. I feel like there used to be.
And it
one
got
here.
repaved and maybe didn't get
Yeah.
restriped.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it just didn't go back down because, and I will say the one that's crossing Broadway doesn't look nearly that
Berkeley
fresh
says
and
there
clean.
wasn't one
There
there.
wasn't.
There, even when we repaved it.
There's no curb cut really on that
Okay,
side.
so that would be, I would love to have a, so you see that there's got the little ramp over there and then there's the ADA ramp on this side.
Berkeley will be in-house too?
Yeah, Randy will be.
Yeah, Randy will be doing that one.
It looks like that
Yes.
ramp needs to be.
Yes.
widened a
Oh,
little
Thank you,
bit.
no,
Randy.
I'm not,
Oh, yeah, the one on the.
Mr. Walt needs to.
Yeah, the one on that side. I can do that.
Okay, Counselor
Bring
Sings.
that up to
Counselor Gwaltney, I was just gonna ask about
Is that
that
a
ramp,
storm?
which Randy is currently referencing, just to make sure that it is up to current ADA standards while we're doing the project.
It's not, probably not.
Well, there's no ramp on the left there.
We will redo that.
Berkeley said he should.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, so same motion as before.
I'll make the motion to approve the crosswalk for the intersection of Carr and Broadway, as long as it's handled with city employees and funds.
Second.
Second by Counselor, okay, motion by Counselor Bryant, second. Second by Counselor Harden. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, 4-0. 340425, request for a discussion of safety issues at the intersection of Oxmoor and Saint Charles, coming from our city manager, Mr. Adams.
So, I've had countless encounters with the public and emails reference this entire area. And I think we need to just tee this up for a conversation. I know I have several people here from the community and businesses willing to talk on it also. I don't know if I sent you the PowerPoint that has the overhead, but I do have, for the committee to look at, a nice little bar diagram of our beautiful area there. It is about as complicated as you can get. I was fortunate that Cale has something so we can cut a piece, put it over and draw ideas and concepts, if you are so inclined to do so, but to be able to discuss this and say, what are we actually willing to do here? I've had several conversations about the sidewalk that you see on the left-hand side possibly coming out. I've had conversations that would include eliminating the left turn into that little alleyway you see right there. And that way it would allow traffic. What you can't see over here on the left is the parking. When trucks park in that parking area, they stick out into that lane. And so people are in the turn lane anyway, and that would eliminate that from being able to be blocked off because everybody's stuck behind a car that's in the turn lane. Everybody couldn't easily turn from the next light down to the left and access everything on that alleyway has. I just want a lot of conversation to go on because I've been hearing of effects of parking. I've been hearing the effects of loading down the Saint Charles next to Odie's right here. And so there was a discussion about possibly putting a no loading zone down the middle of that.
Thought we already had.
And
Yeah, I thought we already did.
So hold on, for historical purposes, that was, as it is today, or right there, you could do anything you wanted to there. After the previous item was discussed, that was turned into a loading zone with the intention of preventing cars from parking there, but what has occurred is that the trucks are now parking there, and they're either parking too close to the street, or they're parking too far up, or they're parking on the sidewalk. It's just become an issue, largely. Once we had an issue, I think a couple weeks ago, and I talked at length with Captain Sutton, and their recommendation from police, and you can validate this if I'm incorrect, but was that needs to be turned into no parking, and then we can then force the trucks into the parking lot. So that will also force them to have to come earlier for deliveries, which they should be doing anyway. I will say, some of the players, because I go through there pretty early in the morning usually, most of the players are getting their deliveries early, but it does seem that some of the businesses are receiving their deliveries at inopportune times that cause lots of headaches. So I think the no parking, so as a part of all of this, I think no parking needs to occur at that spot.
Meaning yellow curb?
Yes.
Yellow curb, yes.
So what I would recommend is, I know we have people here from the
Yeah.
community that would like to talk to this and give their ideas, and that way you all can then take those ideas and discuss any options that you may want to do.
Okay, so before we move to public, anybody else want to share any thoughts here? And then we'll go straight into those.
I guess my question is this something that we really need a traffic engineer, somebody to look at this on a bigger picture? That, I don't know, Kale may be better
So
answer that.
I mean, it's been studied every which way, I feel like, and there have been concepts drawn and.
We've made lots of, so all four, to try to address, because what happens is, at 3 o'clock, this area explodes, it's busy in the morning, then there's an event going on, there's just people everywhere, right? So what needs to happen ultimately in all of these areas, in my opinion, is we need to slow traffic and then maintain sightlines. I was a big fan of bricking the whole area, but lots of people around here laughed at me because they thought bricking that area was a bad idea. But that being said, I think the focus needs to be, and then we'll move on to the public to add there's probably ideas we haven't thought of there, but slow traffic down somehow and avoid parking here so sightlines aren't blocked. Because all that will benefit us whenever we've got lots of people on the street.
I do so spin back around, Brian, toward Big Spring. So that crossing right there leads you directly into a vehicle that may back onto you into the crosswalk. That's the most dangerous and crazy crosswalk we have in Homewood.
That didn't have a working signal until about 2 years ago.
Yeah, not long ago.
Right.
Getting out of there is dangerous.
But the one that's at the next block is a terrible crosswalk as well. I would say it might be the second worst
Broadway,
crosswalk.
Broadway.
Yes.
The good thing about that one though, Ms. Gear, is after school and before school, we have an officer station there to help people across. Our most vulnerable people, children, we have an officers there Monday through Friday to help with crossings, specifically for children. So it is, in my opinion, it's a lot safer crosswalk than the one in St. Charles.
But I guess if we're talking about making it into the main crosswalk, because there's a lot of people that cross the street all day long at the one that we were just looking at earlier. And did we change the signal at this crosswalk so that when the hand comes up that you can walk that the left turn off of Broadway is still red, or do we know? Because that's a big issue.
Broadway has not been changed,
Okay.
St. Charles got changed.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's all a part of the, I mean, I guess, are we just looking at,
I just
Pedestrian
wanted this to
access
be a
and-
conversation, because since I've been here a whopping 2 months, I've had discussions with citizens 4 to 5 times a week. So there's a lot of issues here. And as the new person, I shouldn't be the one who comes up with the right decision. I just tee up the discussion.
Okay. All right, so anybody would like to speak, feel free, go come up here so we can get you on the microphone. And he's happy to give us your address and your name.
Hello, I'm Hannah Hightower. This is my husband Brad and my son George. We live at 306 St. Charles Street. And last month we met with Mr. Adams to discuss our concerns. And I'm happy to hear that he brought something more open than what we initially discussed. We've lived at St. Charles Street for more than 10 years with our 12-year-old and 9-year-old who go to Homewood Middle and Edgewood Elementary. Over the last 2 to 3 years, St. Charles Street and the intersection of Oxmoor have become increasingly dangerous to both traffic and pedestrians. Large semi-trucks park in the loading zone on the first block of St. Charles next to Odie's, often in high traffic times, morning school drop-offs, dinner time. They block half the street, so traffic exiting and entering St. Charles meet blindly head-on in one lane. I can't believe there hasn't already been a serious accident. We request the loading zone be removed and changed to yellow no parking. Number 2, cars park directly across from each other down St. Charles, completely blocking traffic. I don't mean a single car to get through. I mean no cars can get through, including emergency vehicles. This is because there's inadequate parking for the businesses of Edgewood Business District. We want a solution to prevent St. Charles traffic from becoming blocked. We've been here before. We came to you guys before when our then 8-year-old son was hit as a pedestrian at that crosswalk accompanied with an adult nanny in March of 2024. We've sent letters April 23 of 2024, July 23 of 2024, and our neighbors and my husband spoke to the city council on May 19th of 2024. Other than having the light changed to where the drivers now get a red light so the pedestrians can cross, this has not been addressed, and we've had multiple conversations about this problem, including our other neighbors who are here and have had to leave because of the time. Our first priority should be citizen safety. I feel like our priorities are backwards. We're bending over to be convenient to the businesses of that district. We enjoy the businesses of that district. We have no vendetta against them, but they need to be good neighbors, and right now they're not being good neighbors. We're very frustrated. There are 32 businesses in that Edgewood district who share 200 parking spaces. Based on the maximum occupancy and the number of employees, there's 1,000 people potentially trying to use these 200 parking spaces. They're down our street and the side streets. We are asking for some sort of solution. Obstructing the intersection and blocking traffic on our street is not neighborly and is unsafe. We understand that your job is to make sure that businesses can be successful and that our street can be safe at the same time, but we've lost that balance. We are open to ideas and solutions, but the status quo cannot remain. And I also am pleased to hear your comments at the Creekside development. I just ask that you consider the downstream consequences of the developments we already have that are on a much smaller scale, negatively impacting our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, who else would like to speak to this item?
All right, so.
Can you give us your address?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm Tom Walker, from 1402 Roseland Drive. If you all are familiar, we've done a development in West Homewood, and we're not here to speak about that this evening, but to speak about this intersection and really in general Edgewood, downtown Edgewood. I don't know how, Chief Ross or Glenn, you really want me to talk about this, but y'all asked me to come and speak to it tonight. So really, what I came to speak about was not necessarily traffic in the intersection or in Edgewood. It was really more relating to vagrancy. I'm not sure how much all you all know about this, but there's a person that lives in Edgewood out of her car. She's potentially doing more than that. And, you know, what I have really noticed, the business owners, one of the business owners and I came and talked with Glenn and JJ and Chief Ross last week about it. And I encourage them to come and talk tonight, and then also to allow them some time to be able to put in place some effort to really allow more attention to address the issue. But what I thought would be beneficial tonight would have just sort of same spirit, start a discussion about what could potentially be done here. I think that the police force is handcuffed a little bit by some federal legislation and some federal rulings that have prevented them from being able to enforce vagrancy laws to the way that we would want them enforced in neighborhoods like Homewood and Edgewood. And like I said, I really only wanted to come. I stayed this long because I really felt like I had to say something, but I also wanted to make sure that everybody understood this is a real issue. This lady's been living here for about 7 months now. She's been addressed with the police department several times. She's been trespassed from most of the businesses. She's smart enough to know that she can't go in and out of the businesses now. I know it's an eye-opening conversation. I think it's a conversation we need to have, and I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. Chief, do you have anything else I should say, or you don't? I don't really want to elaborate on it. I just wanted to bring it up as you all kind of directed me to.
No, I appreciate you coming tonight, Mr. Walker, and we had a good meeting the other day you referenced. I appreciate that. I've done some research since our meeting. I have what I feel like is a potential solution that would directly affect and perhaps solve the issue that you brought up. And it's a city ordinance from another city in the southeast. There's a couple of cities in the southeast that have an ordinance that basically states you can't live in your car. And I want to maybe send that to the city attorney, let him look at it, and then, you know, perhaps the council can give it some consideration, but it might give us the ability to keep people from doing. It's not the first time we've had this kind of issue happen in Homewood. And look, I understand people become homeless for lots of different reasons, but protect the integrity of our neighborhoods and our shopping districts like this, it might be in the city's best interest to look at an ordinance like this.
Chief, did you find out if the person that she'd been hanging out with had been convicted of any kind of nefarious activity, or? Because I agree, I don't think we should prosecute people from being homeless. I think that what worried me was something that I saw in someone she was.
Yeah, it's not just that she's homeless is not the problem, but the conduct, the behavior, and perhaps even some criminal behavior that we might, you know. Well, I know we've had to address already with her in particular. But yeah, please rest assured that we are looking at her and her cohort, for lack of a better word, with regard to criminal activity.
And I don't mean to raise concern. All I'm trying to do is create a discussion, because I think it's something that, this is not a business owner, this is a resident. Woods is my son. He's over here watching Paw Patrol. He lives right down the street. We're 600 yards away from Edgewood Elementary, and we're 200 yards away from Dawson Baptist Church. And it's something that I think that should be addressed. And if there's anything that the citizens of Homewood can do to empower the police or the counselors in Homewood to be able to more adequately protect or give them more tools in their toolbox to be able to provide more, a safer area, then we're happy to do that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
That's a very good point, and I think an additional agenda item to handle this topic would be good, especially if it's going to need to become an ordinance. I have received many complaints from the apartment complex that is across the street from this intersection we're discussing now, of similar situations where someone is either living behind the building or living on their stoop, and they've moved on now, but they routinely have had that issue. He's been back at least once. It may be the cohort with this person, but I would say, can you work on some of that ordinance detail with Mr. Kendrick, and when you're ready, we can put that back on the agenda, and if you want to come support it.
We're here to support it. We, the businesses of Edgewood are I believe majority behind it, and like I said, we had somebody from one of the businesses with us in the meeting, and they're the ones who see it every day. I see it when I drive through it. Unfortunately, my world runs through Edgewood Village, and so I kind of pay attention to what's happening right there, but I'm happy to help from the citizen side, and I know the businesses would support it well, and appreciate y'all listening to me tonight.
Of course, and look, just to let the council know too, we've increased our presence there. I hope, Mr. Hightower, I hope you will notice that too in the future.
See our names come across your phone.
Yeah, so I mean, we're there to monitor the parking problems we're having, the safety concerns, whether it's traffic related or potential crimes being committed there, problems that we have with vagrancy, and a host of other things. You know, there was a crawfish truck on the sidewalk one night where we had to respond to that because it's blocking the street when traffic couldn't pass. I understand the issues that you brought up with the people parking on both sides of St. Charles. All of these things, all of these challenges are because everybody wants to come there. There's great businesses there. There's great, you know, residential areas to live at and schools to go to, churches to go to. So it's a good problem that the city's having with respect to that, but give us some time to work on it from a policing standpoint, and I really think we can make a difference down there with regard to the problems that we're experiencing.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is that every single instance that I've had individually, and I know that this other business owner has had, has been that the police responded incredibly quickly. They've been very prompt, they've been adequate in how they've dealt with it, and been very clear in how they've communicated with us. So we appreciate you all doing that. All we're really trying to suggest is potentially adding more tools to your toolbox to be able to help, you know, keep the area as safe as we possibly can. So I appreciate y'all's time.
The important part on this also is this person's able to blend in with other vehicles, and that's part of the issue. They're parking different locations, blending in with the vehicles because of the amount of traffic that's there. And they're blending, so they can't, you can't dine them out. They're in different places every day, and they're blending in.
Okay, so I said that was the last thing, but y'all know me well enough, that's not the last thing. The real last thing is that one of the things that I talked about today was the potential to add hours of operation to the parking lots, to the municipal lots there. I know that I talked with Mr. Kendrick earlier today about something else, and he said that a lot of the businesses use those lots overnight for their catering trucks and things like that. So perhaps if we put hours of operation on the parking lots, and you didn't have a special permit to park in those parking lots, you couldn't be there overnight. Because the way that it's been described to me is that it's almost like free parking in Monopoly. You know, if somebody's there and they're not doing anything wrong, then there's a really hard chance for them to be moved out of the way for doing that. But if you do it and you know, make the hours of operation in accordance with the businesses in the neighborhood, that might help.
Or we put in a pay to park.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm not here to pick that fight.
Yeah.
I'm just
That's
saying.
all right. It's
Yeah.
a solution.
Yes, sir.
So, I want to ask one thing. For clarification, you legally cannot block our sidewalks by ordinance, right?
No, you cannot.
Okay. So, has that truck or tent or whatever he's been setting up, has he been back?
Every
since then?
Thursday night.
That's what I thought.
Well,
So-
I think what he went from doing is positioning his truck that basically blocked the sidewalk. They moved the truck over to the parking lot, and then he blocked the sidewalk with tents the next week. So hopefully this last Thursday, he didn't do either one of those things. Okay, good, because we have,
He set up inside of Odie's, he set up inside of.
he set up inside, okay, yeah,
Because of the weather.
yeah, okay. But I've directed my guys to absolutely, we're not gonna tolerate that. We're gonna start citing people for doing things like
Yeah.
that. And
Were we confirming he has a peddler's license? I guess it would be a peddler's license, right? If he's-
Business
He'd have to have a business license, but I think
Yeah.
to solicit from city property, you need a peddler's license.
we've instructed our officers to check for that as well the next time we have contact with him.
Alright, so let us know if he should.
All right.
So, okay. Are you, Mr. Walker, you good?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
But before we let them go, but I mean, do y'all have any ideas? I mean, do you want that alley to be one way?
It was worth it.
We're not
I was trying to take that agenda item and put it to bed so we can move on with this agenda item.
Okay, so I'm Patrick Vick from 209 Saint Charles, and one recommendation that we have would be to cut the street off at Stewart Street and make it a dead end for Saint Charles. That way we're not having to deal with the pedestrians parking their cars in front of our houses. They go to the bars or the restaurants, they stay 3 or 4 hours, and then we're having to deal with them as they're coming back to their vehicles. And it's just putting the community in a toxic situation with us dealing with somebody that's been partaking in beverages or whatever you want to call it, and then coming right outside my front door trying to get into cars. So we're wanting to see if there's a way to possibly dead end
Can you pull that up?
there at Stewart Street.
Can you pull an image up of that?
Sure.
Or make it a one-way.
Yes, it can.
Gotcha.
So right here.
So you wanna make that up?
No, turn it towards
St.
Charles.
St. Charles, yeah.
Yeah, right there. Right there, make that a cul-de-sac, and then that would open up the city to have more parking in this area that use this whole area as a parking lot. And that would keep the people, you gotta envision, there's cars parked both sides of the road right here. When it's all throughout the day, pretty much. But we're dealing with them parking, you know, they get upset at us, and we're having to talk to these people as they're going to their cars, and it's just not a good situation. It's putting us in harm's way. We've actually had several individuals go to the door and knock because they're upset that people are double parked, and they think we're doing it as the residents, and they've knocked on doors asking why, you know, upset about the situation. But that's, our recommendation would be draw the line right there, make it a dead end street for us. I know that's a big request, but.
Or a one-way. It could be converted into a one-way.
Coming out.
Y'all need to talk to the fire chief right there.
Well, let me say this.
Why I got him here.
There's major legal issues with closing a public road.
Generally, we're not in favor of it because our general response plan on any of the neighborhoods is to come through the main thoroughfare to the closest cross street. Because if we get off of that main thoroughfare, there's a chance they're double parked and we won't make it through. So if we're coming into your house, we're gonna come down Oxmoor and take a right into your neighborhood there, because that is probably the closest we can get. If we close it there, we'll just have to come around and we may look at parking on the next street up, because when they park side by side like that, we can't get through. There's just no, it's just not possible.
What's the
Some
one
way
way?
to prevent them from parking.
Yeah,
You know,
that's,
some way to prevent them.
I came through there the other night after we left Homewood Day in a pickup and
You can't get
bump mirrors on both sides. There's no way a fire truck was coming.
The other Saturday, a single lady, she was driving a truck in a trailer, and she got stuck right there where that little orange dot is. I walk out of my house and I go down there and say, ma'am, can I help you? And I had to back her trailer out the backside where she could go, keep going. But she was stuck. She was literally just stuck in the middle of the road. So,
And
The one ways don't bother us because we're
really
really one
responsive and really professional. So what they told us is they don't have any right
There's nothing they can
to
do.
ticket
That's
somebody
the
for that
I
problem.
was discussing that with Randy
Okay.
Hambley, traffic sign and signal. The only yellow curbing going, I guess in a northerly direction as we're looking down Saint Charles from Stewart Street is that there's no yellow curbing except for the ones that are provided by ordinance, being a certain amount of feet from an intersection.
Where the cars parked right in front of that yellow one right there.
Yeah, but if you drive around some of the other streets in that neighborhood, you will see one side of the street is yellow curbing all the way down the street, and then one side is not. So there's nothing for me or my guys to go and write tickets unless they're parked at the intersection on the yellow curbing. So legally, they can park on both sides of the street in front of your houses, which is
Well, and
problematic.
we know that because we did have a meeting with the neighbors and we considered a yellow curb and your
Mhm.
officer was there, your
Lieutenant Brundage.
lieutenant.
Yes, ma'am.
And, you know, the problem on this street is that the neighbors have so little parking.
Right.
Some of them
Yeah, they didn't
don't,
like
some
that
of them
idea.
don't even really have a front driveway. So that if they have company, or even for their second car, they have to use the road. So
Mm-hmm.
we would be penalizing really one side or the other. And
Yeah,
most of
exactly.
these
On
folks,
a lot of these streets.
most of these folks do park
Yeah,
at
you
least
and I
one,
talked about
some,
that.
but I'm not saying that.
and
Here's an idea.
you know,
that I have.
the other thing that we're running into real quick, okay.
If we could perhaps come up with an ordinance and or signage that would say something to the effect to disseminate the information to people that are seeking to park there, that don't live there. You can't do that. If you're parking in front of these homes and you're not a resident or a guest of this residence, it could be a violation of city ordinance and we could cite them. And that would perhaps deter, at the very least, somebody that's, you know, frequenting Odie's or these other places to eat and drink. Maybe they wouldn't park there. Maybe they would just use the lot or drive a couple of 3 blocks and find a parking space where they weren't in violation of any ordinance. I don't know, that's just an idea that I thought. We've read this area a bunch of times.
I did a whole bunch of research on residential permit parking.
Mhm.
And I know the.
I mean, it would be difficult to enforce. I'm sure Mr. Kendrick is
Oh, that
already
wouldn't
thinking
be my
that.
problem, it'd be yours.
Right. It would be difficult to enforce,
The
but
ordinance
look,
is
a lot
not
of
a problem.
times, a lot of times an ordinance with some proper signage can go a long way to deterring people from not wanting to violate the law in the first place.
Mr. Kendrick, can you clarify for us, if you cannot via parking your vehicle in public roads, make it impassable, correct?
You can't block.
So if the road is impassable,
Well,
what recourse do we have to
but-
fix that problem?
But here's the problem.
How do you determine?
Who made it
Who started
impassable?
No, I'm just saying,
I mean,
can we
which
tell-
car made it impassable?
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a hang tag if we live in the area?
That's a residential permit. We have an ordinance. for
And
that.
so what'd you find out on your deep dive?
So that was about 18 months ago. I learned that there are many municipalities that do it. But then we talked, I think I talked with a friend about who would enforce it, who would be in charge of selling the permits. There would be, you know.
Melanie,
just
I
have to
gave you that
define it.
ordinance a couple years ago.
And we have the
Yes.
ordinance to support it, I
Yeah.
think.
I will say, they do it in, on Churchill in Richmond. I stayed in that neighborhood when we went to a soccer tournament, and, they have residential permitted parking. The permits don't cost anything, but you, like somebody said, I think they had actual, like Churchill resident stickers for their cars.
So I
and
think we.
They also had signage that said parking for residents only.
Well, in Virginia, where I used to live, you had to have a sticker.
Sticker, yeah.
To be in, to park in that neighborhood.
Yeah, oh yeah, no,
If you live in that neighborhood, you got a sticker.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's how you park, and
And that-
anybody else that didn't park got a ticket.
That will help the people in the little alley behind all those businesses, and I've get complaints on those too.
So one thing I'll note, I think a potential for the solution here would, and this came from another counselor, would be an excellent idea, would be an ad hoc committee made up of people that are concerned about getting this issue solved, people from the city, and then that committee makes a recommendation to public safety for what the logistics of the ordinance or whatever the solution is, because we could, spend 2 hours, debating ideas. And I think that needs to be basically formulated, sent to Mike for review to confirm it.
Yeah, we have a residential permit.
Yeah, but it needs teeth in how we
Well, it
handle.
has teeth.
Well,
It
but
does,
some,
okay.
yeah, if we have people to
Specifically
support it,
to a
because
street
last
where,
time I think we weren't sure that we had leadership to support it, but if we do now, we can.
Well, we had neighbors that did
So
not
what-
want.
What I would like to recommend then is I've had a lot of people request the three things that I mentioned. And why don't we see if that helps before we get that committee? The one lane, the no left turn, removing the left turn.
Are you talking about the little alley between
Yes.
the business across the street from Saint Charles?
No, you're talking about taking away the left turn on Oxmoor.
The left turn lane. Remove this left turn lane right here that goes this way, so this traffic can flow.
So you're talking
And
about
what
removing the
problem
actual
does that
lane?
solve?
Yes.
Okay, so let me
And
ask
it's
you.
not blocked in, it's just opened up. So the road is still wide open, it just doesn't have the left turn lane and that yellow mark.
And I kinda push that, the left turn lane being gone, cause I've had a truck stop and literally have to back into Broadway when the loading truck is in that left turn lane and cannot pass through, and that's one of our main thoroughfares.
Other way,
Spin it around.
other way, Brian.
So that's the alleyway you
No,
don't
this
wanna
way.
go in, and
Yeah.
you wanna remove that lane,
Yeah.
and just make it clear, get rid of that yellow
Structure,
hashtag, hash marks over there, and get rid of all this lane marking, and just have it go straight on. Get rid of that sidewalk, because I've had a lot of people recommend getting rid of that sidewalk.
The crosswalk.
Crosswalk, sorry, thank you. And then put in the no parking along the side of
I still think that would have to be its own agenda item. We'd have to see drawings, we'd have to see renderings before we can approve anything. As a point of order, I mean, I think that we have to slow down and we can't just approve it because people said that we should do this. And I don't disagree that these might be the appropriate solutions, but we need order and process as a committee, how we go about this. And then second, I still agree with Councilor Waltley about setting up an ad hoc committee to think about a comprehensive approach to this problem. So I would recommend that we slow down and follow Councilor Waltley's lead as to how to proceed.
Councilor Gwaltney, I just want to make a couple comments to you. One of them is that, we were talking about the parking issues. I just wanted for the residents here, just mention too, I mean, it's not going to be the solution for this, but just a complimentary piece. There will be additional parking on Oxmoor to the west that'll be added with that road die. I'm sure you're aware of that, but just mentioning it, hoping that reduces the strain on, I'm sorry, east, yes. hopefully that reduces the strain on parking going down St. Charles. I do think additional measures are needed, though. I mean, because I will say, even though the loading zone may have been an intent, may appear possibly that it was there in collaboration with the businesses, it was also for the community as much as anything with the intent of alleviating some of the pressure you're experiencing. Obviously, it hasn't been the solution. So I'm glad that we're continuing the dialogue. And then when we look at that intersection and the crosswalk and removing it that goes into the parking spaces by Big Spoon, again, this is great for committee discussion. And I think I've seen possibly somebody did a rendering, but just extending the island in some manner and putting the crosswalk on the other side to where it actually goes sidewalk to sidewalk instead of sidewalk to, a parking lot. So I mean, I think there's some tweaks as part of an overall, plan versus, trying to just do one of them.
Yeah, and I think that's, I'm sorry, we're done, not bad.
Well, one other thing is if we have a residential, if there is something we can do initially, as like the short-term response, if we already have a residential ordinance, could Randy post a sign that says, even without tags, that just says residential parking only, as at least a deterrent initially?
Even by permit, I think, 'cause that is technically an option, I guess. You look like you had something to say.
Well, the only thing I was gonna say is I think Ms. Gear already really said it, and I think to your point about the ad hoc committee, the last time this came up, we had some people in the neighborhood that liked it and some that didn't. And so I would just say, with regard to the parking issue in the neighborhood, I'm not saying permits are bad or good. What I'm saying is there were differences of opinion in the neighborhood. There may not be now, but there were last time. And so that would be, to my point, to Andy's point about the ad hoc committee, involving those particularly in that portion, to me, sounds like a good idea, just so that we're not going too far one direction based on what the neighbors want back there. It may be that that's the solution, but I think we need to hear from them on that.
I agree with you. So I would say then maybe the outcome of this is, Mr. City Manager, you get to lead the ad hoc committee, or at least direct it. And the ad hoc committee is focused on the solution for parking along St. Charles beyond Stewart.
You can appoint it. You can appoint the committee.
This is his agenda item. I'm gonna let him do it.
Okay.
So I don't work full-time at the city, so. Additionally, the issues on Oxmoor and the first section of St. Charles will be handled by our city engineer, since in collaboration with the city manager, for solving for placement of crosswalk, remediation of a turn lane. That turn lane is largely ineffective because most people drive in it because cars stick out so far anyway.
Right.
But there's too many moving parts, in my opinion, for that to be solved with this agenda item. Maybe it's moving the crosswalk, I guess that would be west to the next sidewalk down. I feel like one needs to be there.
Another reason to close off that alley is to do that.
I wouldn't do that because it's the people park back there, yeah.
I'm still turning right.
But that's an option too that can be discussed. So I'm not trying to just dole out work to people here, but.
Well, that'll slow traffic down too.
Yeah. So, is the committee?
What is her?
I'll make a motion to form an ad hoc committee of citizens and employees of the city.
Okay, hold on. Hold your motion. Were there any other comments or questions that anybody wanted to make?
I have one. Carolyn Carr, 121 Windsor Drive. I am not saying this to be, to point anything out other than what we're solving for is lack of planning. All of these businesses were opened in Edgewood. All these extra businesses without proper parking. So that's what we're solving for. We're solving for lack of parking. So when we open up new businesses in the future, could part of the planning process be adequate parking? Then we wouldn't be having to address these things on the back end.
Mr. Kendrick, would you like to address that?
Yeah, Ms. Hurd,
Thank you.
there's nobody that has parking that's in Edgewood. There's no business in Edgewood that has any dirt to park cars, except on the public streets.
That's correct.
It's what's
And
been
that's a
all
problem.
my
And
life.
that's the problem.
So, but if we legally put a requirement on a business today, say you're in the middle of that block here where, let's say whatever.
Sam's Deli.
Yeah, Sam's Deli is. They decide to redo the business and, open up as a hot dog stand or whatever it is. They open up and we say, oh, no, you can't open now because you've got to go find somewhere in this area 10, 20 parking spots. What do, Mike? They sue us.
Well,
And then we lose.
I think her point is, as we also look at future development, that this needs to be a part of the conversation. There was no
Edgewood's been there
discussion
for
of
100
parking in
years.
Creekside in that earlier presentation.
Yeah,
Right, but that's not
it's
the
like,
issue here.
there is public parking, it's parking on the street. There's a
Right.
turn lane right there at that intersection that y'all have been looking at. One of the turn lanes goes into the businesses right across the street, not into another street. So eliminate that turn lane and put more parking in. So, I mean, what we're seeing here is, like, there used to not be that many businesses in Edgewood. The antique store was split up into how many businesses? Okay.
It was a grocery store before
The
that.
city doesn't control the businesses that go there. I know what you're saying. The city has no control over the fact that that property got bought and split up.
But can you not have a minimum number of businesses that can operate in any?
I don't know about our zoning.
Mr.
If you wanna
Kendrick?
take their property, you wanna take that, that's a taking. It says you can't have a
It's not our
business.
property.
Everybody else on that street is zoned the same way.
So they
have
could
the same rights as, every business has the same right in that zone.
Okay, so you could actually subdivide that up into little parcels the size of the little bar that's there. Have that many businesses there because.
Yes, in theory, yes.
Yeah, they're,
If that building owner decides.
no
to sell
business
it.
in Edgewood has any parking requirements. Cause nobody owns any dirt for parking.
And it's the same in downtown.
Yeah.
It's the same right here in the building in front of us and the building behind us.
That's right.
And on 18th.
And it's a challenge.
But I just think we
but
need to think about that for future development, I think is her point.
Well, we certainly.
parking. Edgewood has been there for 100
Yeah,
years.
greenfield development, 100%. I mean, I think
Yeah.
those have totally different sets of regulations. We saw that with, other developments occur in the city. But we are seeking, like Councilor Sims mentioned, we are seeking to add parking spots. We have them coming on the Oxmoor Road diet, which is what, 30 some odd parking spots? It's not a ton, but it's something.
And
The
we got a lot
problem
of
is
complaints about that.
we have gotten complaints about it, but the larger problem is the parking inventory, the largest owners of parking inventory do not want to allow the city to enter into agreement to use that parking.
Be in
We could
Sanford.
mitigate.
It's Sanford, not
Oh,
Sanford,
no.
that's Dawson, I'm sorry.
I wasn't gonna name names, but we could mitigate a large number of our parking issues if those people would enter into an agreement with the city. But every
Okay.
time we bring those issues up, we are stonewalled.
Okay, I know for a fact that Dawson has offered to work with the city.
That is incorrect.
That is not true.
I have,
On
I literally have the
parking.
written details from the mayor's meeting.
Wait, not in the deck, but in the open parking.
The specifics that came out of that meeting was that only the employees could use it, but we could not sign it, saying it was available for employees. We could only send a letter to the ownership of the businesses, and actually, there were
Just
some.
signed another version of it today.
Yeah, so we do
You're right.
routinely, because we know there's turnover in the businesses, we routinely send them this letter that Mayor McCluskey started after he met with Dawson at least 3 times.
Yeah.
I literally have from the meetings, he called me and I wrote it all down. But all that to be said, we are trying to encourage them to, park there, but we can't sign it. If you would like to, provide us your address and your name, you're welcome to speak next. Are you done, Ms. Hurt?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Next.
Me. Miss Parking here, Miss Homewood Parking. I just don't understand, you all are sitting here today talking about parking, and more parking. And yet, you all want to take the jail.
That is not what we're discussing here.
I know you're not, but I'm just trying to make a point that we need parking. I mean, parking is an issue in Homewood, period. I don't care whether you're in Edgewood or here. And you all kind of turn a deaf ear to it.
I disagree with that completely.
Well,
That's why we're
that's your
having the
opinion,
discussion.
And that's my opinion.
That's why we're trying to find a solution at every chance we get down in Edgewood and downtown. I mean, Mr. Smith actually has recycling plans for downtown right now to add parking spaces, because we're trying to find additional parking wherever we can. So to the issue at hand with Oxmoor, is there any objection to the ad hoc committee managed by Mr. Adams and for Stewart back down Saint Charles, and then, Director Smith handling the Oxmoor portion in coordination with everybody?
I'd just like to add one more thought that was mentioned earlier. I don't have any problem with what you just said, yeah. If there is a way to, there is a sign at the intersection of Stewart and Saint Charles, right where you're about to enter the 200 block, and I forget what it says. It says something like neighborhood parking.
It says local traffic.
Parking. If we could change that, I don't know if we can, but if we could in the meantime, change that sign to residential parking only, I don't know that we can. But if we could authorize that, just to see if it would make a difference.
I think people will park there until they get ticketed or.
It's possible.
Mr.
Maybe we don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, Mike.
Well, you can put a signage, but how do you
We
enforce it?
can't do much
Yeah,
about it.
I guess I just wonder how, if it would alleviate it.
I mean, I
I mean-
gave Melanie the ordinance for residential parking a couple of years ago.
You did give it to me a year ago, and we didn't have any, we talked about it in a meeting, and there was no.
I don't know whether the sign would help or not. It can't be enforced because we haven't figured out how to issue permits yet. And what it's requiring is to issue permits.
That's fine.
Now, it may still help, I don't know
That's
whether it
fine.
would or not.
That's fine.
Just I want everyone to
Well,
understand we have no way to
We won't
enforce it
do- we won't-
until we do that.
We won't worry about it.
I don't want the cart before the horse, because often we pass something and we don't have the logistics of the process behind it. So it needs to have the teeth, it needs to have the enforcement mechanisms, who hands out the passes, what's the trigger for getting a pass, what's the radius or the
Sure,
streets. I think
sure.
all that stuff needs to be documented, hence the committee.
Okay, I just have one quick question. The part that I heard that was concerning from the main viaduct on Oxmoor was that, fire truck can't get through. Mr. Smith, you indicated that you've already studied this area, that left turn lane going westbound. Is there anything we can do with that, just that part right now? Since it's been studied and looked at, that whole intersection has
The
been.
turn lane in front of OD's that turns left into the.
Turns left into the alleyway to go back behind.
Well, I haven't really looked at the turn lane. I know Glenn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenn and I discussed it.
There's no ordinance that defines that turn lane, it's
Yeah.
just painted it.
Right.
And the only time we're hung up there is if there's a delivery truck parked in there.
Right.
They just can't get through.
Yeah.
With them parked on the side and a delivery truck in the turn lane, particularly the truck company, the largest ladder we have, has had to back out and go around
Sure.
several times.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So whether we stop them from parking in that turn lane or we get rid of the turn lane.
I think it was, the discussion had been restriping that area, and I mean, as a driver going through there, I try to hug right up on the center line anyway, because it's so tight with those, the cars parked in the lots.
Thank you, Councilor Warburton. I think I heard Mr. Harden, did you have
I
something?
had a motion, I think, to form an ad hoc committee of citizens and folks from the city. I don't know how to say the makeup. And just over the next 30 days, if we could come up with.
I think 30 days is an excellent duration.
Some solution.
I would second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to form an ad hoc committee, primarily, like we discussed before, primarily for Stewart down St. Charles, managed by the city manager, and then solutions for Oxmoor and St. Charles to Stewart, handled by engineering. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 4-0. 360425, request for permission to allow parking space in the right-of-way at 908 Highland Road.
35, but
that's
we're gonna
the-
carry that over.
Oh, yeah, I'm
It's
sorry,
okay.
I'd already marked it carried over
Yep.
because of your commentary. Yeah, 350425, we will carry that over at the request of Councilor Wolverton. Now to 360425, request for permission to allow a parking spot at 908 Highland Road.
Amy's trying to do her part to add parking on Irving.
Yeah.
With this request.
Highland?
There's a drawing, Brian, a site plan.
She just sent me
Good gravy.
We got parking to talk about, Sue. Come on back.
Oh, can you pull up the PDF that I sent? No, keep going. Yeah, right here. That's the parking space, so this is Irving?
Yeah.
And that's the parking space that she wants to build on to.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
What's it called?
Irving is where?
So if you keep going down Saint Charles, the last street that you turn left on.
Right.
The other issue with Irving is.
I was trying to see which, in this drawing, which,
Yeah.
I know where, I
That's the
do know where
parking
Irving
space. Will you
is.
go to Street View, Brian?
That would be helpful, Street View would be great.
Also, I mean, this isn't part of this discussion, but if y'all do that ad hoc committee and you're discussing residential permits, think about how broad that neighborhood, because then people coming to the garden won't have a residential permit.
Right.
And then this is the street going into the middle school, and people are parking on both sides of the street, and it's very difficult for cars to get through going to schools in the morning as well, so you might wanna, think about yellow striping one side.
Student observation.
That's Highland, yeah.
Yeah, it's on the back side. It's on Irving, not Highland.
The address of the garden is Highland.
Yeah. 913 Irving is the address of the parking lot.
Spin around, Brian?
You can go cut through the alley, that's fine.
Hey, look, parking in the alley. And that is
Too
a
close
big-
to fire hydrant.
Yeah, that's a very valid
Ticket.
point. We do receive lots of complaints about parking on Irving as well, because it is very congested and it is very impassable when two cars park there. So, it's that precedent where.
That's right about there.
Yeah. So where this black Forerunner is, she would carve out it in toward her property and put a concrete
It
parking.
wouldn't be in the street, it would be in the.
Yeah, we'd be
Inside.
taking up some of the garbage.
So just one parking spot?
I was told that we could only fit one. I'd be happy to fit more if we could, but I was told that we could only.
Did I
fit
tell you
one. I think so. And-
I don't remember.
Well,
that.
and
That's
also
okay.
Goodwin Mills and Kaywood, when they did the original design, said that we could only fit one, and Tara Barber, who's redone the construction design, said, also confirmed.
Oh, from a,
that
just from a.
because of the
right,
size
right, right.
standpoint.
Right, yeah.
Cause like I asked them to look at if we could do angled off-street parking, but they said we could only do like the parallel.
Yeah, you
And that
can,
would be
yeah.
one car. And if we did it on this lower side, you've got that magnolia tree to contend with. Cause you've got the power pole there, which I'd love to get that old power pole removed, Randy.
Power.
Yeah.
So it's just sitting there.
Passing ordinance for that. Yeah. So, discussion about the parking spot, committee and public, are either of you here to talk about this item? No? Okay.
Although Britton did help design before, when he worked with GMC.
I did say one parking spot would fit.
It sounds like one parking spot is the best way to go. Any other questions? Motions?
I'll make a
Thoughts?
motion to approve Uno parking spot.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Councilor Grant and seconded by Councilor Harden. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed nay. The ayes have it, 4-0.
Thank
Um,
you. I know. Got my bedtime alarm went off about
Y'all are
that.
obviously not here for my committee, but I'm so sorry.
Good
that
night.
y'all- Your items were up tonight. I'm adjourned.